Hey guys, I am so thrilled to be here today with my amazing friend, Anthony Castore, who is an extraordinary consultant, wellness coach, and guide for many, many people that you probably know, but he won't say. And he builds extraordinary protocols for people. He really helps people elevate their health and their wellness and take them to the next level, recover from injuries, optimize their brain. We've been blessed to work together with a wonderful organization of extraordinary doctors that we get to learn from, we get to work with, and we get to really elevate people's lives. So Anthony, introduce yourself so that some of the people that haven't heard of you can learn a little bit more about who you are and what you do and how you are serving people.
Sure, that's a really hard intro to follow. It's wonderful, and I'm grateful to be here. I guess a little bit about what I do. My background is in strength training, and I've always been fascinated about how things work and, why does this happen? And that fascination, that curiosity kind of took me down the path of cellular medicine. I found the SSRP and became the first non-physician fellow for SSRP. And I guess probably the best term would be a eduholic, addicted to education, gone to every single event they have, every course they do. And really, to me, I love learning. And I love learning because that puts me in a position to be able to help others more and empowers myself with my own health. And it's an amazing world we live in. So learn everything we can about it.
I love that. I love that. So I like to start by just learning a little bit more about what it was that started you on this path. At what point in your life did you say, this is my calling. I want to serve humanity in this way, and I want to help people heal. I want to elevate their lives and elevate my own life.
So it's really kind of a funny story. I'm blessed. I mean, I couldn't have had two better parents. My father, his background, he was a professor of psychology and went into private practice. And my mom taught first grade, and she was a guidance counselor after I was born. I was enough of a handful that had to take some time away from teaching. And I think through the compassion that I grew up around, it really created that mindset that, you always want to help the people around you. You always want to lift other people up. But in terms of my journey, I was a small kid when I graduated high school, buck 17, dripping wet. And girlfriend told me, we were out at a bar, 3 a.m, fight breaks out. She's 118, I'm 117. She's like, that comes over here, I'm going to have to be the one that jumps in front. So I was like, I got to learn more about training. I got to learn more about getting big and all this cool stuff. So kind of how that ties in, ended up getting an amazing trainer, really just absolutely loved the process. 6 months, I put on 65 pounds, naturally lost 2% body fat. And all of a sudden, all my friends are coming up to me and they're like, hey, what are you doing? Can you train us? And I'm thinking like, I'm not qualified to train anybody. I'm just a guy that likes to work out, but I realized I could help people. And so I was helping them for free. And my trainer starts joking with me. He's like, you realize you're paying me to train you. You're helping all these people for free, which is great, but you should at least make enough to cover your own training. It's going to be able to pay for your education. And that's when it kind of clicked for me that, there's a way that you can do what you absolutely love. You can learn about something you're fascinated in. And most importantly, you can help other people, just like my parents helped people. So it all kind of came together for me.
That's awesome. And that is a beautiful example of one of the things that I've seen in humanity, that when you have a calling and you just start helping people, you do something because you want to help people, then the other opportunities present themselves so that this becomes part of what you do in life and your own livelihood and your own contribution to society. And so I know that you're a person that uses a lot of intention and mindset in all the work that you do. And have you seen this type of mindset work really complement or accelerate the healing of people when you are working with them? For example, if you have protocols that you're giving them, have you seen a difference between people that are just not incorporating mindset practices or positive intentions towards the work that you're recommending that they do versus the people who actually do the work with the intention, take the supplements with the intention, use the peptides with the intention. Even in your case, because you're very fit, very strong, I know that you fitness people also talk about like the mind muscle connection, right? So talk a little bit more about where that comes in and what you've seen, what's really moved the needle for people.
It's really probably the biggest thing, and I love that you brought it up, that when I have clients coming to me, and we're having that first meeting and everything, you can always tell from 5 minutes into the conversation the people that are really going to excel and go forward, and the people that are there because they heard you're great at what you do, and they're going to go through the motions and they're going to tap out and not see the results they're expecting. And when you look at really, how do you know that and what differentiates these people? It's that whole buy-in, that whole mindset that when people come to you and there's not those limiting beliefs, there's not that I failed before, I'm going to fail again, but it's more like this guy's got a solution for me and I'm committed to doing whatever I need to do so that we can work together as a team and get an amazing result. It's almost like the expectation for success is there, that it would be weird if you didn't succeed. And when you approach those things with that kind of mindset, it's like there's no other outcome possible. And I think it's also really interesting because when you're approaching it with that I've already succeeded mindset, because there's always going to be setbacks, but it's like, how are you going to look at those setbacks? And when you have that I've already succeeded mindset in place, what ends up happening when there's a setback, you don't really see it as a setback. You see it as a blessing. It's like, this is fantastic. I just learned that this way that has worked for all these other people doesn't work for me. I understand why it doesn't work. And now we're that much closer to a solution. So it's, always glass is half full.
Having that positive perspective, right, really makes a difference. And what I've noticed, and I'm curious to see if you've noticed this, I know you said when you started, you really wanted to build that muscle to feel physically big and strong and empowered. And I know for myself as a female, it took me a while before I started to work on building muscle. And what I found for myself is that once I started to build actual physical muscle, I started to have more confidence, more resilience, more grit. Like a lot of things that in life maybe were a little bit difficult before started to become not as difficult because I realized I was strong. And so I would love to know more about your experience because you actually have mastered muscle and how you feel that muscle affects your self-esteem, your self-worth, your confidence, and really how you carry yourself in the world and how it actually transports and transmutes into the rest of your life.
It's really fascinating, the interconnectedness of it. And I think you did a beautiful job of articulating it, that what I found, at a buck 17 dripping wet, the I had big plans for myself, but it's hard to imagine yourself successful. And then you take on something as challenging as working out in the gym, and it's hard. I remember the only reason I got stronger is because I was scared to death of my strength coach, and I was like, if I don't do this, he's gonna beat my can. So I end up thinking to myself, like, all right, if he thinks I can do it, I can do it. And then pretty soon it wasn't, if he thinks I can do it, I can do it. It's, I'm actually doing it. And then it was like, he'd put something on the bar and I'm like, let's go a little bit heavier. So you really start to, I mean, it's a great process. You start to have that confidence. And what's crazy is at first you're just seeing success in the gym, but then you realize other things like areas that you're studying in where maybe you were intimidated, try to learn something really challenging. You reflect on that process that you had in the gym. Like, I never thought I'd be able to put a squat bar on my back, and look at what I'm doing now. And, that was tough. And I remember there were some days in there where I was like, oh man, I got to go to the gym, and I'd rather not, but got through it. And now, I'm super happy with my results, and it's going to be the same for this thing I'm trying to learn. So it really does. It branches out to all other areas of your life. And I think it's kind of the impetus that gives you that extra push to do something that maybe you're not comfortable doing. And as soon as we step out of our comfort zone, as soon as we see we can succeed over there, it becomes more routine, and it perpetuates. The more routine it becomes, the more we do it. And more confidence we build.
Now, one of the other things that I find fascinating is we have a mental health crisis, they say, in our society. It seems that a lot of people are experiencing severe stress, anxiety, depression. I hear about this more and more every day. I work with people that struggle with this. And this is where I feel that science and spirituality really can have a beautiful collaboration and dance together. And for example, some people think, well, you just didn't meditate long enough, and that's why you're still depressed, or you haven't ascended yourself, you haven't elevated yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. However, I have found that the processes that we do, the peptides that we have, sometimes it takes medication, sometimes it takes diet, but really optimizing that brain chemistry really can move the needle for people when they are trying to get over anxiety and depression, of course, along with mindful practices. But I know that you are an expert in brain optimization, cognition, and brain performance, if you want to call it that. And I'd love to hear more about your experience with that and how we need to work together with not just the spiritual, but we do actually have to take the steps towards doing the physical things like the peptides and the things that you teach about and you're a scientist about. And could you share some of those techniques, some options that people might have so that they can kind of remove the factor of having the brain chemistry issue so that they can move into the spiritual practices and the happy life that they want to move into?
Sure, yeah. There's definitely real nice synergy between the two things. And I think that when people come to me, there's that initial challenge of you have to decide what are we going to go after first. And for some people, where there's really sort of a brain chemistry imbalance, neurotransmitters are kind of out of sync, and there's just this excessive anxiety. So, you want to give them the message about perspective and teach them that in every situation there's a lesson, a blessing, and an opportunity. And that's really, the credo I live by, that there's no such thing as a bad situation. But sometimes, there's so much anxiety in somebody that they hear that, but they can't put it into context. And the nice thing is with peptides, essentially what we have is a tool that creates signals in our body. And those signals are just like we talk to each other. It's like our cells are talking to each other. And our cells are saying, when we introduce a peptide, like say Selenk, for instance, that's going to modulate GABA, which is one of the inhibitory neurotransmitters. Real easy way to think about that is the cell's just telling the other cell, like, hey, we're all excited in here, and this is a good thing, but let's just tone it down for just a second because there's a real important message coming through. Want to make sure we get this, and then we'll go back to jumping around. And peptides kind of allow you to have that momentary control over your neurotransmitter, so to speak, and modulate them. And I think that's really the key when we're talking about peptides versus like if we're taking like an SSRI. There's not really going to be like inhibition of a process or like um, adding extra chemicals in. What we're doing is we're reinforcing the signals that are already there. We're optimizing communication. It's like if me and you were standing across the room and we couldn't really hear each other, but then we give each other a bullhorn, and now all of a sudden, that
Right.
that signal is amplified. Then we can hear each other. Yeah. And giving peptides to your cells, kind of the same thing. You're just making that communication clearer. But even on top of that, it's like the things that we got to think about too. Now that we have something in there that can modulate this communication between cells, we have to have hydration. So we've got to lay a foundation to that house. There's got to be the hydration. There's got to be good, healthy cell walls. So the fats that we eat, there's got to be the signaling in place. But most importantly, that's where the stuff you do comes in. That's where we can have all that stuff. We can have optimal communication, perfect cell polarity, everything we need to succeed. But it really starts in the brain. We've got to have that perspective. You got to be able to look at everything that comes up and ask yourself, what in here do I have control over? And the truth is, in life, 10% of life is what happens to us, and 90% is how we choose to react to it. And on top of that, when we look at that as that's not a bad thing that just happened to me, there's a lesson in this. So I'm going to have the opportunity to learn something. It's going to make me better in the future and put me in a better position to help other people. There's an opportunity. This might be a setback, but God's a lot smarter than I am, and He's got big plans for me. So I just need to take a step back and see what the opportunity here is. And blessing, is when we discover that opportunity, like, you know, to use a personal example and not to get too far off subject, but I remember I was thinking I was going to finish up a degree and just go get an average, supervisor job. Seemed like a good thing, good benefits. And I ended up, I was in the final stages of an interview for a job, ended up not getting it. And I was like, oh man, I was going to have tuition assistance, all this stuff. So I was devastated. And my mom, God bless her, she said, Aunt, this isn't a setback at all. You love training. That's something you're good at. Like, this is God telling you to follow your passion, do something you love. You can help more people that way. And don't worry about the money. If you're doing something you love, that's going to come together. She couldn't have been more right. And I wouldn't be here now having the conversation if I'd got that job with Verizon. And
Right.
so, yeah, it kind of been a roundabout way. We have things we can do to modulate signals. We have a foundation we put in place as far as our physical health. But most importantly, we have the ability to see all these situations in a certain way. And when we really dial our perspective in and we've got the right peptides so that we can just calm that storm enough that we can hear that message and put the perspective into place, that's when the magic happens.
And that is a beautiful blessing. I consider that we now have all of these resources that we can use, that maybe we've had them, but we weren't as broadly speaking about them in the past to the greater audience. And that's why I'm so grateful that we have social media, that we have the internet, that we have these venues through which we can share the knowledge and the blessing information that we have the blessing to know about, like peptides, like exercise protocols, meditation, different things like that. And I think one of the things that I've learned from you is you have an extremely strong will. And I believe that, that in life, in order to achieve anything, you have to have a very strong determination and will. And even if you practice it a little bit at a time, you will get there. But you tell a story about you're about to speak at a really big conference in the summer that is the Peptide World Conference, right? And that is a conference that everyone and anyone that wants to know anything about peptides goes to. And I want you to tell the story about when you decided one day, how it happened that you decided that you would be speaking at that conference, because I think this is a beautiful story about what it means to just really have a deep desire in your heart and decide, I'm going to do this. Like you said, I don't know how, and you didn't know how at the time, but you knew and you decided you were going to do it, and you did not give up, and now it's actually happening.
Thank you.
And don't be humble, by the way. Don't be humble, because it's a really big deal.
Thank you. It's a funny story. I had started my journey on the peptide education, and I was just consuming this knowledge. And obviously, not being a doctor, there's the hurdle of, I'd love to speak at this event someday, but I don't know how it's going to happen. And as I'm going through this material and I'm really feeling like I'm learning it, I just had like this lightning bolt of confidence and go upstairs talking to my fiance. And I was like, Jules, I don't know how it's going to happen, but 5 years from now, I'm going to speak at the Peptide World Congress. And she loves me. She supports me. And she's like, I don't know how you will either, but I'm sure you will. And I can't tell if she really believed that or if she was just being kind, but it was it was really incredible, because what you notice, like from my perspective, what I noticed is as soon as I put it out there, as soon as I said it, it was like all of a sudden I was throwing a dart at a dartboard and I could clearly see that target. And I was going to throw a lot of darts before I hit the bullseye, but I knew I was going to hit that bullseye, just not a doubt in my mind. And when you really lock in on a target like that, when you really fully in your heart believe you're going to do something, it's not so important to figure out the steps, how how you're going to get there. That's going to happen organically. And it did for me. It was, I couldn't have ever said, you know, I'm going to go to Grand Rounds and Dr. Seeds is going to offer a fellowship, and I'll go to a couple more and they'll see that I've got an interesting enough perspective to be worthy to speak there. But I just knew that somehow I was going to do it and put it out there, and it happened. But another funny story, and this one dates back to when I was younger. You know, I was a short kid growing up, and I'm a short man now. But when I was growing up, I could jump. I mean, it was incredible. I'm 5'6" and I could touch a rim, and nobody's like, you know, 5'6", you can't touch a rim. But I saw somebody touch a rim who was obviously taller than me, and I told myself, I was like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I jumped, and I didn't get it on the first try, but I'd just keep practicing. And it got to that day where I could touch the rim, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, like, how do you do that? And I was like, it just seemed weird to me that people would ask that question, because I never thought I couldn't. I just knew it would take time to get there, that there's a rim up there, I was going to touch it, and if I worked at it, it would happen. And I think that's kind of the, if I could give advice to people, the bit I'd want them to take away is, you set your intention on something, there's not a doubt in your heart that you're going to get it. It doesn't matter how you're going to get it, but you'll figure out a way. Your body will figure out a way, your mind will figure out a way. It'll absolutely happen. But you got to put it out there, and you got to really believe it, because if you don't believe in yourself, then why are other people?
That's usually my last question, but I'm glad you said that. But I just want to back up to one thing that you mentioned about SSRP. Can you say what SSRP is, and let people know about this wonderful organization that I'm familiar with and I also am involved with? But the thing is that generally they only have actual doctors that are either fellows or faculty. And so tell us who you are at SSRP, and you're the first of one.
Basically, SSRP Seed Scientific Research and Performance, and they're the top organization in the whole world for cellular medicine. And when we talk about cellular medicine, it goes further than peptides. It includes nutrition, you know, exercise, lifestyle, pharmaceutical, repurposed pharmaceutical, nutrition supplements, everything. But it all looks at essentially leveraging the intelligence of the cell. We've got all these amazing cells in us. We've got a pretty good idea how they work, and we can trace everything back to the dysfunction in the cell when there's something that's not working. So SSRP, they're an organization that's attracted the top minds in the world, physicians primarily, some nurse practitioners, but people, medical professionals. And the meetings, basically, it's a meeting of the minds. We're there to really take a deep dive on topics. Like the most recent one, we looked at the mitochondria, and man, I was in heaven. I mean, I nerd out on this stuff, so it's like going to the Super Bowl for me.
Right.
But the purpose of it really is about great group of people getting together that are really committed to education, to learning, to getting ideas out there, and to sharing that with other people. And it feels like a family to me. I mean, I'm blessed to be a part of the organization.
But what I wanted people to know is that you are an SSRP Fellow, and you are the first non-doctor SSRP Fellow, right?
It's kind of a funny story. So they have what's called Grand Rounds, and Grand Rounds is traditionally 10 doctors. And the first event that came up that you could sign up for, you know, I see this and I was like, man, this would be really cool, but I'm not a doctor. Like, I don't know if I'm going to go to this one or not. And I found out they didn't have recordings available of these. So I was like, oh, you know, I really want to go, but I'm probably going to get shot down. And I actually didn't have the confidence to sign up for it. So I get an email, and email's inviting me to go, and it says it's from Dr. Seeds. And I was like, you know, this is probably just AI generated. They're just getting people to sign up. So I didn't write back. I get another one. And I was like, they're pretty persistent. You know, maybe I should at least do them the courtesy of saying, I'm not a doctor. So I write him back, nice email. I was like, you know, I really appreciate what you guys are doing. This would be an amazing event. Honestly, I'm just not the caliber of mind you're looking for. I'm a strength coach. You guys are doctors, and I don't want to take the spot away from somebody that could really contribute something. Dr. Seeds writes me another letter, and he's like, look, really want to have you here. We value your perspective. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think this is real. So I was like, all right, Jules, I'm going out to this grand rounds, and I'm happy being the stupidest person in the room. I'm just going to be a fly on the wall, going to learn stuff, and found 2 case studies to go out there. I do a lot of consulting, so I had plenty of case studies to choose from. Went out there, and we're going through these case studies all day. So then at the end of the day, they offered a fellowship to a physician in Philadelphia, and I was super excited for her. And then they were like, we've got one more announcement, and they offered me the fellowship, and I thought they were kidding at first. I was like, really?
Wow.
And they confirmed. They were like, no, we'd really like to have you here. And that's what's so unique about this organization. Like, it's not about whether you're a doctor or whether you're a strength coach, whether you're whatever. It's, they just want people there that are committed to helping other people, committed to learning, open-minded. And what they notice, and I think this is incredible, is that each of us, you're going to have a different perspective. I'm going to have a different perspective. Dr. Seeds will have a different perspective. And when you look at things through so many different lenses, you see they start to converge, and you start to understand the interconnectedness of spirituality, physical training, cellular medicine, and how it'd be weird to think of these as single things. Like, you can't have one without the other. And
So true.
yeah.
So true. Well, I think we're going to start incorporating more and more of all of these practices. And I think society is now open to merging science, spirituality. Definitely, many of the doctors that we're blessed to work with, to collaborate with, are open, even though they are very elevated. They've got MDs and PhDs and all of the Ds behind their names, but they are really extraordinary and elevated and want to provide the best care, the best service to the people, their clients, their patients that they are blessed to serve. And so I really love that. And I really appreciate you. And you are a perfect example of extraordinary generosity. You always share your wisdom with people. And I believe that the more we give, the more we bless each other, the more we help each other in this society, the more we are blessed. And it's a generous heart that is a healthy heart, And so I want to thank you, Anthony. And can you please tell people, how they can work with you, where they can find you, and how can they connect with you?
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for having me on. I mean, I'm humbled to be here and really enjoy our conversation. If you guys are interested in more of my content, fairly active on Instagram. It's just at Anthony Castore, Castore. I'm also really active in the SSRP. I'll be speaking at Peptide World Congress, and the week before in Indianapolis, I'll be speaking at the Athlete Builder Summit. You can reach out to me through Messenger. I'm super low tech, so Messenger is really the best way to get a hold of me, and I'm really happy to help anybody I can. So don't hesitate to reach out if there's something you'd like to talk to me about, bounce an idea off me, or anything I can do to help you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, guys, that's a wrap for today. And I just want you to remember to always live big, love big, and give big. And the more you live, love, and give big, the better your life will get. And for any of you that are suffering from any mental, emotional, or spiritual, or even physical ailments, please remember that nothing stays the same. Everything comes to pass. And we're all here to help and serve each other. So always reach out, use social media to reach out to people that are using their life to be of service, to heal the world. You'd be surprised. Most people are actually really kind, generous, and giving, and more than ready to help. So stay happy and stay loved.